Mode. Thank you. And we're live.
Namandab, 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 namandab. Kansho. Namandab, 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 namandab.
Good morning. Today is May 29th, 2022, and we welcome you to New York Buddhist Church's service streamed live on YouTube and Facebook. We will begin with quiet sitting. Please sit up straight, feet flat on the floor. Calm your mind and follow your breath. We will begin with Vandana Sarana on page 167. Today's chant is SAM-BUTSU-GE, Bodhisattva Dharma-KARA'S verses in praise of Buddha LOKEŞVARA-RājA, Tan-Nembutsu, and Ekoku Merit Transference on page 79 to page 90, followed by a meditative reading. Reverend Cheryl Joko Ikemiya will then share today's Dharma message. We will close service by singing Gathas, Seiya on page 226, and Nembutsu on page 169. Namu Amida Butsu.
Please place your hands together and stand. You are able to. Homage to him, the exalted one, the enlightened one, the supremely awakened one. Buddham Saranam Gacchami. Buddham Saranam Gacchami. Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. Sangham Saranam Gacchami. Sangham Saranam Gacchami. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I go to the Sangha for guidance. I go to the Sangha for guidance. Namo Kyebutsu. Namo Kyebutsu. Namo Kyeho. Namo Kyeho. Namo Kyeso. Namo Kyeso. Namo Amidas. Namo Amidas. Namo Amidas. Please be seated.
SAM-BUTSU-GE is on page 79.
Kogen Gigi Ijin Grand Punyo Zemyo Muyo Dosha Nice to see so many of you here today. For today's meditative reading, I've selected a passage from Zenmon Koshin Otani's book, The Buddha's Gift to the World. Chapter 6, The Buddhist Contribution to Peace through Promoting Mutual Understanding among world religions. I am convinced that the Buddhist teachings contain many valuable hints as to how to bring about world peace by reducing the differences between world religions. For instance, there is a saying attributed to Shakyamuni Buddha, the founder of Buddhism, "For hatred does not cease by hatred at any time. Hatred ceases by love. This is an ancient truth." Dhammapada 5. I believe that these words have a universal message that speaks to people everywhere. Of course, it is no easy matter to dispense with hatred, but it would be far more productive to think of how to relinquish hate rather than apply our minds on how to retaliate against others. A concept highly expressive of the Buddhist worldview is pratitya samutpada, or interdependent origination, engi in Japanese. Basically, the concept states that every seemingly separate thing in the world arises out of a mutually shared set of conditions, and as such, there is nothing that lasts forever. For example, dualities such as justice and injustice, or friend and foe, would seem real enough, but they come into existence only because the conditions that support them are there. In fact, they have no reality in and of themselves. We recklessly jump to conclusions when we resort to violence to eradicate them. It would be better if we took things into perspective and sought to bring about real change by addressing the underlying conditions that give rise to them, one by one. Nembutsu. 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 So it is my great pleasure today to introduce our Dharma speaker today, Reverend Cheryl Joko, who really needs no introduction. Thank you, Reverend Cheryl.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for coming today. I really appreciate your presence. It's funny because last week, I think it was last week, Gary's commented, we don't really coordinate our readings and our Dharma talks, but somehow Isabel's reading and my Dharma talk are in total sync. So I might be repeating some of the same things she just read from the Zen-Monshu's writing, but that's just kind of drilling it more into you. So thank you for coming today. I'm going to be reading a passage from the Shoshinge. Can you place your palms together? Sakyamuni Buddha was born into this world with the sole mission of teaching the treasure ocean of Amida's vows, to rescue us who constantly pollute our streams of birth and death. Please listen to the truth of Sakyamuni's message. The mind of true and trusting, that is Shinjin, arises from my awakening to the reality of Amida's vow. No need to sever evil passions to reach nirvana. Ordinary people, holy monks, unbelievers, we who break the 5 precepts equally, just as we are, through the like various polluted rivers, become of one taste on entering the ocean of the view. To receive and be taken in by Amida's great compassion is to be perpetually transformed, embraced, protected by its light. Yet while my inner darkness is thus broken, my cloudy mists of anger, hatred, and desire continue to obscure Shinjin's bright sky. Though Shinjin, in the same way as sunlight filtered through the mists and clouds, continues to cast light into the darkness below, to receive this Shinjin is to know great joy. Simultaneously, I am emancipated from the limbo of a world without Dharma, of all of us, good and evil together, who hear and awaken to Amida's great vow. The Buddha says we are persons of Shinjin. Those who comprehend this completely are like a white lotus blooming. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. So, this has been a very difficult past few weeks, I think, for all of us. And upon reflection of that, I went back to this passage in the Shoshinge. And the Shoshinge is Shinran Shonin, the founder of our school of Jodo Shinshu. It's his interpretation of the Pure Land teaching. It synthesizes and encapsulates his point of view. Bodhisattva Dharmakara, on his path to becoming Amida Buddha, affirms that his primal vow, the 18th vow, is to not attain enlightenment until all sentient beings, without exception, enter the mind of true and trusting, or Shinjin, where we become one with Amida. All beings, regardless of whether they are good or evil, are illumined by Amida's light of compassion. Even with the clouds of our greed, anger, and foolish desires blocking out the light, Amida's compassion is always present. When one is awakened to Amida's presence and Amida's boundless wisdom and compassion come alive in us, we cannot help but experience great joy. Shinjin becomes a part of our mind and heart because it is awakened by Amida's call to us. Shinjin is a state of unity with all the universe, where the ego self is absorbed into the ocean of Amida's boundless wisdom and compassion. Shinjin, once experienced, will never go away and will only grow and blossom into great freedom from our suffering. For we who follow Shinran and Honen's teaching, the Nembutsu is the path that awakens Amida's call when we call the name. And when we call the name, there is no me, there is no other. We realize our interconnectedness and become one with all beings and all elements of the universe. And there we experience great gratitude. This past week, we again experienced the collective horror and grief of shooting and death of 21 individuals, young fourth grade students and teachers. The New York Buddhist Church's Sangha member, Matt Kaufman, wrote about his perspective as a Buddhist on this incident for the Brandeis University school paper, where he's a graduate student. If you have a chance, please read it. I included it in the MailChimp this week, and maybe Isabel can post it on the website. In this article, Matt speaks about Shakyamuni Buddha's teaching on the interconnectedness of all the elements of our world. Not one thing exists on its own. We are not only the children of many generations of our ancestors, but we live because of the food provided by the farmers, those who manufacture, transport, stock the grocery shelves, and sell the food. We live because of the animals and plants that give us their lives, the sun, the soil, and rain that gives life to the plants. We're not separate individuals, but we are deeply interconnected. Realizing this, we cannot be anything but deeply grateful for how we are able to exist. For with all these parts that create and sustain us. Therefore, we're all connected to those children and those teachers who lost their lives. Also, to the families in Buffalo, and in Southern California, who are all grieving. We can't ignore their pain because their pain is ours. And because of this, we need to think and take action in whatever way we're capable. But what about those who caused this pain and suffering? Those who bring about death and destruction? How do Shinran, Shakyamuni, and Amida view these people? What would they do about that 18-year-old youth? How would they respond to the evil acts that we're witnessing with random attacks on innocent people and vulnerable people? The elderly, Asian women, the Black community, a man sitting alone in a subway car. What would they say about the special military operation in Ukraine, in the thousands of deaths on both sides? Uprisings, war, and suffering were part of the times of both Shakyamuni and Shinran. Both these pivotal men witnessed how greed, anger, and ignorance created havoc in their societies, in their communities, to their sanghas. This last week I walked in my neighborhood, and there's a large board about half a block long with the names of people who have been killed during encounters with police officers. In the upper hand corner is James Baldwin's quote, "It is certain in any case, ignorance allied with power is the most ferocious enemy of justice." Today we witness as these great teachers, Shakyamuni and Shinran, did in the past, the pains and suffering of humanity rooted in the three poisons of greed, anger, and ignorance. Even with the most evil of evil beings, Shakyamuni showed wisdom and compassion. In the Contemplation Sutra, we learn about Prince Ajatashatru, who, spurred on by Shakyamuni's cousin Devadatta, kills his father, King Bimbisara, as he wanted to gain the throne. He then imprisons his mother, Queen Vaidehi, who secretly had aided King Bimbisara, her husband, by feeding him stealthily. And in the text of the Kyogyo Shinsho, Shinran relates the events of Jatashatru, who usurps the throne and is plagued by extreme guilt over his father's murder. And this leads to his suffering with painful boils covering his body. However, Queen Vaidehi, despite his cruel treatment of King Bimbisara, attends to her son with medicine, but there is no relief from this suffering. With deep regret, Ajatashatru says, "A wise man said, if a person acts in body, speech, and mind are not pure, know that he is certain to fall into hell. I am indeed like this." Ajatashatru comes to realize his evil nature. His physician Jivaka recommends that he visit Shakyamuni, who he says is a doctor of the mind. Ajatashatru even hears the voice of compassion from his late father exhorting him to go to Shakyamuni. The Buddha, seeing Ajatashatru's agony, declares, "I will not enter into nirvana for Ajatashatru's sake." For Ajatashatru signifies the need for salvation of all people attached to blind passion. The Buddha then emits a beam of serene light that shines on the body of the king, and his sores disappear. Ajatashatru visits the Buddha while fearful that he would be punished for all his sins, but gradually he realizes that the voice of compassion was directed toward him and this fills him with joy. The Buddha then relates the causes and conditions that led to the murder of King Bimbisara, leading back to the Buddha himself, enabling the late king to gain the throne due to his help. Therefore, if he hadn't aided Bimbisara, then Ajatasattu would not have killed his father for the throne. The Buddha declared that he himself should share the same punishment, having caused the condition for the murder of Bimbisara. Ajatasattu was moved by this great compassion of the Buddha and declared that he would not regret grave punishment for his evil if evil could be expelled from the minds of all. For Shinran, Ajatasattu's spiritual awakening was born with this recognition. Underlying our actions are the innumerable interconnected causes, conditions, and effects that create our lives. When we do not realize how we are all interconnected, we develop destructive perceptions that separate us from others, and we're moved by selfishness and calculated actions. Shinran said, "Our desires are countless, and anger, wrath, jealousy, and envy are overwhelming, arising without pause to the very last moment of life. They do not cease or disappear or exhaust themselves." We do know from history that, as Shakyamuni Buddha himself said, anger cannot be met with anger. Anger can only be met with loving kindness. As we learn of these violent acts of murder and suffering, the emotions of anger that then take over in ourselves. But if we meet anger with loving kindness, we find it more difficult to let the anger escalate and overtake us. First, we have to calm our minds. For us as Jodo Shinshu followers, we say the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu. This helps to settle our minds and as remember our interconnection with others in an expression of gratitude. Then we can cultivate loving kindness and try to understand what happened from the other's point of view, the point of view of the perpetrator. If we reflect back on ourselves, we can see the potential of greed, anger, and ignorance in ourselves, given the causes and conditions of our lives. A deeper understanding gives us the ability to convey loving kindness and compassion to others, regardless how it might be received. To receive and be taken in by Amida's great compassion is to be perpetually transformed, embraced, protected by its light. Yet while my inner darkness is thus broken, my cloudy mists of anger, hatred, and desire continue to obscure Shinjin's bright sky. Though Shinjin, in the same way as sunlight filtered through the mists and clouds, continues to cast light into the darkness below. To receive the Shinjin is to know great joy. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda. Namanda.
Will everyone please rise for a Gatha? Seiya on page 226 and Nembutsu on page 169.
Shino
Tan-Nembutsu on page 169. Please be seated. Thank you, Reverend Cheryl, for a wonderful and insightful talk. We first have to look within at ourselves before criticizing others. And when we try to let love and kindness grow within ourselves, it helps us to deal with all the conditions around us that we may not be able to affect the causes directly, but we can at least try to calm the raging storms in ourselves. So this is the time in our service where we acknowledge and make announcements. Are there any announcements from the Sangha? Anything coming up? Oh, Reverend Cheryl is giving me the side eye because tomorrow she and I are going to the cemetery to hold service for our members. First, we will be going to Mount Olivet, which is sponsored by the Embassy of Japan, the Japanese American Association, JAA, and the Lions Club. We'll be holding an interfaith service there at 11, and then we will be going to Cypress Hills, where the New York Buddhist Church maintains a columbarium, to hold service and greet and chant for our members who are buried there. So if anyone would like to join us, we should be at Cypress Hills around 12:30. We think about 12:30. And so that is one announcement. Last week we held our Sokai, our annual members meeting, and information and minutes of that meeting will be sent out within the next month or so. Thank you for those who made an effort to join the meeting. We appreciate your participation. I'd like to acknowledge today our pianist today was Nobuko Kodama-san. Thank you, Nobuko, for playing the piano for our service. Our greeter today was Claudia Kohn. Thank you so much, Claudia, for being our greeter today. And our tech team today of David Brady and Carl Palma are, as always, deeply, deeply thanked for allowing us to hold service not only for those present here, but for our virtual Sangha as well. We're grateful for your participation, although we certainly are eager for the day when we can all safely join together in person as one Sangha. But we do hold these services for you, so we are grateful to you for coming in today. And let's see, anything else? Next week is Oh, yes, thank you, Reverend Cheryl. Yes, next week is the Shotsuki Hoyo service for the month of June. And on our monthly Shotsuki Hoyo services, which take place the first week of each month, we dedicate the chanting to in memory of those who have passed during that month, whether recently or in the distant past. The names are read at the beginning of the service, and if your loved one passed away during that month, you may submit your name for inclusion in that service. So you can approach any of the ministers and give us, or you can download the form from our New York Buddhist Church website, which is newyorkbuddhistchurch.org, and there is a form at the bottom for Shotsuki Hoyo. And also on our website, we do have a link for donations online, and we welcome your dana, through which we maintain this facility and are enabled to bring services to you. And you can also download the membership form. And we love to have new members. And by joining as a member, you are able to more deeply participate in our church. So, but we are welcome you to come to our service next week and at any and all times. So we look forward to seeing you next week. Please enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. Stay hydrated, stay cool, and thank you for coming today. Please join me in closing Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu. 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 Namo Amida Butsu.